What is the secret to making girls chase you? Dan Bilzerian has the answer, and we're going to find out whether it's true. This is the advice Dan Bilzerian recently gave during Chris Williamson podcast.
What are the common assumptions, the biggest ones that are holding guys back when it comes to attracting women? And what are the reframes or the best strategies that you've deconstructed from yourself?
Okay, so the most common problems I would say would be some mindsets, like, limiting beliefs is a big one, like thinking like, oh, I'm not tall, so women aren't going to be attracted to me, or I'm not rich, so I can't get women, or, like all these reasons why they're not attracted
Do
to
those
women.
things not matter?
No, they don't matter at all. Like at all. Like the things that actually can make a woman pursue you or chase you or be interested in you. Like,
so I think there's a really good middle ground between basically saying that like, oh, looks don't matter at all, and having a limiting mindset like, hey, listen, I'm not 6'1", I have no shot, right? Or I'm not rich enough, right? There's a good middle ground there. Of course, being tall is going to give you more of an advantage, right? But there's plenty of tall guys that don't get laid, and there's plenty of short guys who do get laid. But on average, being 6'2", 6'3" will give you an advantage. Also, in terms of money, that one I think is much less important. I always thought finances to be kind of like a threshold thing. So when you get to the point where you're like middle class, upper middle class, past that point you get extreme diminishing returns.
Bill's a perfect example. He had all the things, not one, not two, not three. He had every single thing that guys think that they need to get women.
Plus a desert island.
Desert island with 36 girls. Like, you couldn't get a better scenario. So like, that is literal proof that like all these things,
still didn't get laid.
Exactly.
That wouldn't really be proof. I mean, there's exceptions for every rule, right? Of course, there's going to be some guys who have a lot of shit who fuck it up. But on average, you take a guy and you just give him no status, no fucking desert island, no whatever, and then you flip the circumstances, he'll do a lot better. I mean, Dan Bilzerian talks about this in his book, how he did pretty well with girls before he became famous. But then when he became famous, he started doing a lot better.
That's not going to solve your problem, because here's a guy that had all those things and he still didn't do it, right? And I have another sample of a bunch of guys in my fraternity that were short, that didn't have money, that weren't that smart, all this stuff, and they got a ton of pussy. So like, I just know that it's not the traditional things that guys think that they need. That's a part of it. But I think like I said, when I kind of like deconstructed it, the biggest epiphany that I had was the difference of when you are chasing a woman or you're pursuing a woman versus when she's pursuing you. And like the flaws disappearing on both sides. When a woman's chasing you, your flaws disappear, her flaws magnify. Just like when the really, stage 5 clinger girl hits you up all the time, it's just like, you're not interested in her. Maybe she can suck your dick on a Friday night if you strike out at 3 a.m. Right. But like,
I like how Chris is just doing the very slow nod. He's like, yeah, suck my dick at 2 a.m.
Same thing's true for women, is like when these guys massively over-communicate interest, they know they can have them, and then it's like a conversation of do they want them? And when you're looking at flaws, you're going to find them. Like, you've got flaws, I've got flaws, like everybody has flaws, right? So when you're looking for flaws, they stand out. But when you're pursuing something, like think an auction, like 5 guys want something, 5 guys are bidding for something, and like you really want it, and you have this like, idea in your mind of like when you wanted something, you didn't get it, and the fear of loss, you're not thinking about what's wrong with it, you're just, how do I get it? Mm-hmm. Right? Just like, and this is probably the most common mistake guys make, is they're like, this girl's hot, how do I fuck her? That's the thought process. Like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Like, I would marry that girl. How many times have you heard a guy say like, oh my God, she's so hot, I would marry her? It's like, what if she has AIDS? What if she's a pathological liar? What if she's like 95,000 guys? What if she's just like a serial cheater? Like, what if this girl has massive problems? What if she's bipolar? What if she's got a massive alcohol problem? Whatever, right? Like, dig a little bit deeper, like be discerning, like.
He's completely correct about this. I've seen this quite often. For a lot of guys, the majority of guys, I would even say, is they wind up dating, a girl who's relatively attractive, who's willing to fuck them, right? It's just, that's enough for them, right? And then they just basically close their eyes to all the girls' red flags, right? But it should be not enough at all. You should be picking from a place of abundance. Now look, for casual sex, I don't think it matters anything besides the girl's looks and hopefully, whether she has a clean STD bill. But for a relationship, there needs to be a lot more than that. You need to find out if the girl has similar values than you. Is she trustworthy? Is she loyal? Is she transparent? Does she have the values that you want? Like, for example, I like a girl who's intelligent, right? I don't want to be with a dum-dum, right? Those are the things you should look for. And instead of just accepting a girl to be your girlfriend or even your wife just because she's attractive.
Go into the interaction, like wanting to find out more about the girl, not just accepting her looks as being enough. And I think that's the biggest problem that guys make, is that they just like, the looks are enough. And then the conversation is like, how do I get her to like me? So you're already going in there with a handicap. Like when a salesman comes in, like he's already coming in from a handicap, versus like when somebody goes into the store because they need milk, they just go to the aisle, they find the milk and they buy it. Versus if you show up at the door and you try and sell them milk, then be like, oh, well, who is this guy? Is the milk old? Can I trust this? You know what I mean? Like the difference, like when you want something, it's just like, how do I get it? It's not, the same conversation.
Imagine Dan Bilzerian showing up to your house trying to sell you milk. Hey, you fucking Jew, you want to buy some milk? No? Okay, well, get the fuck out of here.
That would be the biggest thing. And I figured that out because I had a big sample size of girls that wanted to fuck me that I screwed it up with, and a big sample size of girls that wanted to fuck me that I also had sex with. And I think that's like, look, in an experiment, you have to have the control group, right? Most guys do not have the control group. Like I literally had girls sending me butt naked photos on Instagram. I want to you. And I screwed it up with those girls. So I'm just saying, like, only in like cross comparing what worked and what didn't work with two sample sizes of girls that both wanted to sleep with me could I figure it out.
Given that you're the same guy to both of them.
Exactly. Because like, there's girls that just like wouldn't want to sleep with me because I'm Armenian or I have a shitty haircut or whatever, right? Like there's going to be girls that just like wouldn't fuck me, period. So because I had that sample that I knew that they wanted to sleep with me and I screwed it up, I was able to like figure out the things that I was doing wrong. And like one of the big things that I was doing wrong was like I was over communicating interest. I would have problems with the girls that I was like, oh damn, like this girl's hot, she's different, or like, or I really like her or whatever. And my approach would change. And because my approach would change, my results would change.
What about?
He is correct. You do not want to over communicate interest, right? But I think also you probably don't want to play it too cool. Now, I would say that me personally, I'm definitely much more on the side of playing it too cool. And I've actually had multiple situations where girls were like, hey, I just didn't think you were interested in me, so I just stopped responding for that reason when I like really pressed them to respond. Or I've even had girls say like, hey, you play it really, really cool, and I just don't like that. I like it when a guy shows more interest. It doesn't happen often, but it's happened a few times, right? So when you play it too cool, a girl just assumes you're not interested at all. And look, the point for which, like, the balance between, showing interest and playing it cool, right, the right balance will just kind of depend on the girl. Some girls, you play it like you show 30% interest and that's enough. And some girls want you to show 50, 60% interest, but there's a happy medium there, right? So for example, like a common opener I use is I go up to a girl and I say, hey, I thought you were cute and wanted to meet you, right? That I think is fine for the vast majority of girls. But if I went up to girls and said, hey, I thought you were really cute, like, oh my God, your hair is awesome, I love your legs, blah, 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 then I would just be rapidly crossing into the territory of just basically just coming on way too strong, right? And showing way too much interest.
The sort of treat them mean to keep them keen / not signaling sufficient interest that that girl doesn't actually end up responding to you at all. I think, well, he's not interested, so this doesn't go anywhere.
So I wouldn't say treat them mean. I would say change your default setting from nice to challenging, because like a lot of these guys, like they aren't really nice guys. Like, oh, like, I just want to be, it's like, you're not that nice to the fat chick. You're not that nice to the janitor. You're nice to this girl because you want to fuck her, so like this whole idea of like,
he's making a really, really good point here, right? I see this all the time. Guys will be so much nicer to a hot girl than they will be to their fucking best friends, right? So they're, at the end of the day, they're not like super kind or super nice, right? They're just basically using niceness as a tactic to seduce the girl or, get her interest or get their foot in the door, whatever, right? Like there should be no situation where you're nicer to a hot girl than you are to someone that you're closely friends with.
I'm just being myself, or like, that's another one. It's like, I just want to be myself. Like I want her to like me for me. And it's like, okay, well, there's different versions of you. There's a version of you in an Armani suit. There's a version of you dressed like shit. There's a version of you where you like take care of your diet and work out and like, work at your job. There's a version of you that just like succumbs to every one of your impulses. Like, like I drive by McDonald's and like, I just want to eat fries, but I don't, like I want to have.
What I think he's touching on here is that you want to be the best version of yourself, right? So you want to maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses.
Snickers all day, but I don't, like you can make yourself better. And I think, a lot of guys don't do that. Like a lot of guys are just like, I want a girl to like me for me.
So get tactical for a moment with regards to guy has girl that he thinks she's hot, she's interesting, I want to pursue her. What is a better tactical way of moving toward that? What should they do?
Well, I mean, I would not start the interaction by over communicating interest, number one. So I would go up and, have a conversation with her. I mean, I've asked girls crazy stuff. I take like a pretty extreme approach, and I wouldn't recommend this for, all guys, but like I'll ask girls crazy questions. Like me and my buddy were having a conversation the other day, and like he was like, I think I was arguing that I think you have a lower chance of getting a serious rejection if you put a girl's hand on your dick than if you go for a kiss. And this is after a girl's into you and like you guys have been on a date or whatever, and there's like, some chemistry, whatever. And he was like, you're out of your mind, like this, that, and the other. And I was like, okay, well, let's ask some girls. So like, I just would go up to a girl and I'd be like, hey, like this is the question. Like, I wouldn't frame like who was on which side, but like they wanted an answer. So they gave their answer. Now all of a sudden we're in a sexual conversation with a girl where I haven't communicated any interest to her at all. And I've almost like disqualified her because I'm asking her this question that like you usually wouldn't ask.
Not about you.
Exactly. You wouldn't ask a girl that you're trying to like hook up with because it's like a crazy question too. Yep. And so
this is interesting. This is kind of what I experience sometimes when I'm doing street interviews, especially when I'm doing like really sexual questions, is that within 20 seconds, I can can get the girl talking about something very, very sexual without showing any personal interest. Sometimes, most of the time, I'm not even interested, right? We're still having a very sexual discussion. And this is why like guys will say like, oh, dude, this question, like no girl's going to answer that. And yeah, there's going to be some girls that will not answer the question, but I can always, for whatever the question is, I can always get girls because it's all about vibe and kind of how I approach them and all that. And there's going to be some girls that will be willing to answer a very sexual question, right? Even if don't have super high body count or whatever. Like there's some girls who I get who are virgins who will be willing to answer a question, right?
I'm not saying that that would be, you know, the optimal approach, but I'm just saying like that's something that like most guys wouldn't think to do, but that it's more successful than going up, over communicating interest, putting a girl in a position where like she has to decide like accept or reject. And usually when they're like forced to accept or reject, usually reject is the default. And if it's not, then they're probably a whore. If they just like accept every guy that comes up to them.
This is your chasing versus choosing paradigm.
Well, yeah. So, you know, get into the interaction. And, you know, the caveat to that is like what you say to a girl isn't necessarily how important is like how you say it. So you could go up and say some really stupid shit to open the conversation. It doesn't really matter. Like as long as you get in there without massively over communicating interest. Right. And then I would say be discerning, you know, be challenging, like, you know, ask questions, dig deeper, get a little bit of information about it, you know? I mean, Neil Strauss had a good one when he was on with Jessica Alba, and he said, you know, looks are common in LA. Aside from your looks, like, what would your friends say are the 3, you know, best qualities about you? And like in that one question, he immediately like pulled away her looks, which was like one of her.
Yeah, that was a pretty good clip. I recommend you guys check it out if you haven't already. But I would say that worked only for that situation. I mean, maybe like at some point during the conversation, you could say that, but as an opener, that would not work.
Her strongest attributes, like nobody give a fuck about Jessica Alba, she's ugly, right? So it's literally like her superpower. He just sucked it right out of the conversation. He's also digging deeper. And now he's got her in a position of like qualifying herself to him and selling herself to him. She's telling him why she's good, you know? And so that would be a much better start of an interaction than like, you know, I think you're so beautiful. Like I just had to come over here and, you know, and by the way, I'm a doctor, you know, and I drive a Lamborghini and like all this bullshit. The guys like, you know, they try and brag about themselves. They're doing all these things. And the girl's just like in a position of like, okay.
Yeah, that's called qualifying yourself. And you never ever want to do that.
Okay. You know, like, do I want this? That's the conversation usually between guys and girls is like, the girl's like, okay, do I want this guy? It's like playing poker and the guys just like turn over their cards. And so I would say like, you know, dig a little bit deeper, be discerning, like find out about the girl, like, you know, decide. And then if you want to give her a compliment on like something that's unique about her, something that's like she earned or, you know, not just like she was born with, you know, like if she has pretty eyes, I'm sure she's heard that from a million guys. Like don't tell her she has.
Yeah, he's completely correct here. You want to generally compliment girls on things they earn. There's exceptions to this, but like, for example, you could say like, I love your fashion, or like, I love your, you know, your gym gains or whatever, something that she wasn't just automatically given, something that she worked on.
You know, like just be different. I mean, I guess like a big epiphany I had too was like when I became famous, you know, and I just talk about this in there too, is like understanding a hot girl's mind. Because when I became famous, like I understood what it was like to be a hot chick. And I understood that in the sense of like, I had forced interactions wherever the fuck I would go, whether it was a Starbucks, whether it was, you know, wherever, like I had people coming up to me, and the same thing is true of a girl. Like when she goes to get her mail, when she goes to the grocery store, like guys are hitting on her all the time. So it's forced interactions. And what I notice is the first 100 times guys would come up to me and be like, bro, you're the man, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, all this shit. I was like, okay, cool. You know, whatever. And I always take the pictures, you know, but I guess what I'm trying to, you know, explain with that is, let's say you were a famous guy and a guy comes up to you and like, bro, you're the man, dude, like all this shit. And you've heard this 10,000 times. Is that going to make you want to have a beer with that guy? No. Like maybe you'll take a photo with him. You'll tell him you appreciate it, but it's not going to make you want to like hang out with him. Now, if that guy comes up to you and is like, hey man, you know, I only got a second, but I just want to tell you like, you know, I really like this, you know, maybe the guy's a rock star. I really like the song that you did. And he told him a song that he did like in the garage. He's like, and I had that same guitar that you had and whatever. And then he's just like kind of excusing himself on the way out. Maybe that rock star like wants to have a conversation with him. Oh shit, that guitar, you know, that's like one of my favorite guitars, you know, like now you're coming at it from a different angle. And I would say the same thing is true with hot girls is like, if you go up and say the same shit that all these other guys have said to these girls, you're gonna have the same knee-jerk reaction. The walls are gonna go up. She's gonna remember the last 20 times she got caught in a 30-minute conversation with some idiot talking her ear off, and she knows that the guy just wants to fuck her because she's built no value, right? Like early on in the conversation, if you compliment her a bunch before she's earned it, it's kind of like you're telling her indirectly.
He's not wrong here. Now, look, it's okay to compliment a girl a little bit, but a lot of guys overdo it.
You're above me.
You're above me, and your looks are good enough. I don't even care if you have flaws. Like you're hot, and so that's enough for me, and I'm ready to date you.
It's so funny, that kind of a playground mentality of if I know that I can have it, I don't want it. And it's so funny how that seems to be in your worldview, like a fundamental part of the physics of
It
this system.
translates to everything. You know, it's sales, it's negotiation, it's business, it's all these things.
The person that can walk away from the deal is the one that holds the most power.
Always.
So
All right, hopefully you guys found this valuable, and I do think Dan Bilzerian gives pretty often some good surface layer advice. However, I think that when it comes to going deeper, that just because he's been so famous for so long, that kind of warps his perspective. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you check out our free Tinder guide. Link is going to be in the description. Shows you how to get really good photos so you start getting more matches. However, the kind of bio that makes you stand out so you can get results like Dan B. And of course, text games. Turn all those leads into dates. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.